Welcome back, and we're moving into our second conversation for today. Keeping in theme with Child Stimulation Month, we are joined by representatives of 3 different government ministries talking about how they're working together to improve early childhood development in Belize. We have with us John Newport, who is the Director of Quality Assurance Development Services at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Sports. We have Diana Pook, who is the Civic Education Coordinator at the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Human Development, Social Transformation, and Poverty Alleviation. And we have Dr. Natalia, who is a Technical Advisor for Maternal and Child Health at the Ministry of Health. Good morning and welcome, and thank you for being here.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks, Tim.
So we had a great precursor to this conversation last week with representatives of the Early Childhood Education Unit from Ministry of Education talking about the importance of having children stimulated from a very young age, even before school. Now, one of the things I wanted to open with is looking at where we are in terms of the development of our young babies. And you have a wonderful, comprehensive report that came out of the UNICEF study to talk about where we are in terms of our young children. And there's a specific age range up to 59 months that we're talking about, right? So let's start there.
Okay, the Ministry of Health, in collaboration with other partners, we have a series of preventive interventions precisely to have at the end of the pregnancy a healthy mother and a healthy child, and programs in place to improve the survival rate and the nutritional status of children in the first 5 years of life. We also have the immunization program for the prevention of vaccines preventable diseases, and this is mainly targeting the children under 5 years of age. So these services are provided at health facilities. We do a lot of outreach during mobile clinics. We make much of the opportunities of health fairs, and when necessary we do map-up campaigns, for example, communities with low vaccination coverage. And all of these, the entire Maternal and Child Health Unit provides services geared toward early childhood development. One area that we are not too strong at is the early stimulation, and that is an area that we need to strengthen as a line, one of the line ministries working together.
I appreciate the point that you introduced, which is the development of a child starts from the pregnancy, which is where you talk about your clinics, ensuring that the parents aren't, the mother doesn't have any deficiencies. The education for that has been ongoing, and I know even at the clinics, they try to encourage people to do what they call early booking, which is as soon as you're pregnant, you go to the clinic. How has that been going in terms of getting mothers into the clinics as soon as possible to ensure they're in the best health?
Yes, that has been one of the main challenges we have. Women are reaching a bit late. For example, in the north and the west with Salud Mesoamerica, we have been doing a lot of non-traditional interventions, bringing in women before 12 weeks of pregnancy. And this is mainly home visits with not only the MCH staff, but with other staff from the ministry, going house to house, explaining the importance of early prenatal care, inviting women, identifying those that are pregnant, and offering the services at home, like the testing of the pregnancy just to confirm that they are pregnant, and also offering a package of services like those who can afford, then they would provide them with a free ultrasound, the first ultrasound. But the main problem that we have is not much in the rural areas, it's more in the urban areas. So it's a challenge because of the large amount of population concentrated in urban areas and the reduced staff for these type of activities that we have.
Now, this intersectoral coordination is essentially getting ministries that are relevant to children of this age to ensure you are on the same page and meeting the same objectives in the development of children. When we look at the Belizean child up until 5 years, how are they doing in growing up in Belize at this point? Are they healthy? Are they educated? Are they meeting the milestones that they should be meeting?
Somewhat, I would say. I think one of the things which is happening and why the working together becomes more important is an understanding, a shift in understanding of what we have to do. So if you go back 15 years or so, when we were just commenting on, if you go back to the Millennium Development Goals, the only reference to early childhood was really about infant mortality. So 15 years ago, the concern was survival. Do children actually live until they're 5? But then so much has changed in terms of what is understood about early childhood that we now realize if a child is not getting is not in the right kind of environment and is not getting the right kind of stimulation in those first 36 and 59 months, then that really does have a lifelong impact on what happens with that child through primary school, into adulthood, and even through their 30s and 40s. There's so much data now that the first 3 years are important. So then when we looked at it, we said this is so important, we can't afford to allow disconnections between government agencies. So we can't have Ministry of Health saying one thing, and Ministry of Education saying something else, and Ministry of Human Development saying something else again.
Or doing the same things.
And we're not just talking about policy, we're talking about the level of the field worker. So all the workers who are coming into contact with children really need to understand the importance of the nurturing environment, the importance of stimulation, the importance of the type of interaction between caregivers and children. So if the question is where are we with that, I think we would say on the way, but short of where we would need to be. And roughly you could say maybe 2/3 is where we are. For example, one of the main goals is that every child should have a year of organized education before they go to primary school. And there we're around 60%.
That's like kindergarten, preschool,
it could be preschool,
daycare.
it could be daycare, it could be some kind of organized in the home, like home-based. Not home-based necessarily by the parents, but home-based by people who visit
another
the home.
caregiver.
Another caregiver. We really need to get that to 95, 100%. And so 60% is not bad, but a long way short. In terms of, you mentioned the mixed survey, and we're looking at how are our children doing against what are called the development domains. How are they doing in terms of their social development, literacy, numeracy, emotional development. And again, you know, if you're looking at all the domains, it is about 2/3 of the children are more or less okay. And the other third are ones which we would consider to be at risk, and therefore we need to work together to make sure the risks that are potential don't turn into real problems.
Here's one that I found interesting from this study, and it is basically the overall findings. In terms of the development, the 4 domains, the markers that they're using, 99% physically, which means they're surviving, they're relatively healthy. Learning, is that enrollment in school?
Not necessarily.
Or capacity
to learn, and then having learned some basic number type.
And where we start to see more critical areas are social and emotional, and literacy and numeracy. So when we see this and when we present this to the public, what can you say about the intersectoral coordination that will bring our young children up to par, where they need to be?
It comes back to what we can do together in terms of increasing the stimulation that children have. And that is where stimulation is not just about preparing children for the academics of primary school. Stimulation really is also about social behaviors and about learning emotional control, self-regulation, learning how to do things in a way which is not totally dependent on the adult. And if we don't have the right kind of interaction, those elements don't develop. And so each ministry has programs in its own way with the different sectors of the population it serves to try to really bring that message across. If
let me throw something in here. If I'm to look at this, and I think definitely it isn't the worst situation we can face, but it does show very clearly where we see challenges in the adult population or in the older child. For example, we struggle with math. We hear that every single year when the PSE results come out. Social and emotional adjustment. We know we have issues with parenting, which I know Diana can shed light on, and we have issues with some of the social issues we see within our country. So it very clearly shows that these problems are starting before the children turn 5.
Yes.
And that's essentially what you're trying to curb.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, for example, number sense, which is not necessarily being able to do math, but having a sense of how much something is and the comparison between different, that develops, we think, at the age of 2 and 3. And when I say we think, brain scientists and whatever, it's not. And that develops where adults, and it doesn't have to be the parent, but the parents have a key part of this, adults do activities and games with children which have them doing things with physical objects and comparing physical objects and learning how to count, filling water, putting water into bowls and taking it out again. And all the time the adult guiding the child and responding to the child, and it being a back and forth. If that is not happening between 2 and 3, then the number sense doesn't seem to develop. So when the child gets to primary school, it's not too late, but it's much more difficult.
They haven't had the foundation set.
What we have found through the Roving Caregivers program is a lot of parents don't sit down and play with their child, sing with their child, do these things that might look easy but are actually building the foundation for that child. So in that the easy thing about pouring water into one bowl to another, asking how much is in here, this one is less, this one is more, those are the things that they don't do at home because they don't see the importance of it. If you ask a parent, well, do you know a nursery rhyme, the first thing they will say, I don't know any nursery rhyme. That's what we're finding a lot when we go into these homes. So building that foundation on literacy and numeracy is not there, and that's something that we need to encourage.
And a lot of children like to play in the washing up sink. And they are doing that because they are learning. And a lot of parents stop that because they see it as messing or
we
dirty.
Don't want to clean, they don't want to clean the mess.
But in fact, understand when children play, children are learning. And if children have an interest in something, it is because that thing is teaching the child something important for that child. So if you jump in and say, don't do that, you're making a mess of the kitchen, you have to balance what is more important.
I find that one of the areas, and I appreciate what you said, John, in terms of how the science changes or improves as the years go by. We learn so much more about children at this age. And what we now know is the extent that their brain is developing during those first couple of years that we underestimate with baby talk and making sure they sleep and eat and get some food. And get some TV time. That is really the time that you need to be maximizing education, but not in the academic way that we're used to. Talk a little bit just about the development of the child within those first couple of years, especially in terms of their brain. Whoever wants,
Is that I wanted to mention. Now the evidence is showing that we used to think that around 19 years, that was the time when the brain fully developed. But now that cutoff has been increased up to 25. But interestingly, below 3 years, before the child have 3 years, 90% of the brain develop. So that is where we need to intervene strong as a country, meaning families and providers, to get these programs ongoing. The care for child development is one of the components within early childhood development, and the focus is on children below 3 years of age. And that have 3 main pillars: the brain development, the economic development, and the education development. And so in regards to the brain development, that is where it is important for the families parents, caregivers, to have that interaction as Diana was explaining earlier. Play and communicate with the child. They have studies where you can see that the brain at birth, the brain at 6 months, the brain up to 3 years, if it's correctly stimulated, then you can see the wiring. They express it as wiring.
Yeah.
The wiring occurs.
The
But
connections are built.
if that interaction doesn't occur, and that is where ECD needs to focus on training the parents what to do with the child, especially at that age.
Because up until 3, they may not come in contact with any formal system, any
Yes.
preschool or
Yes.
kindergarten. They'll only be at home. And Diana, that brings me to the roving ground. We've had you on to talk about it before. It is such a fascinating program. You go into the homes and you work with parents on how to interact with children. How do you identify communities that you want to go into, and what is the response when you come in and tell a mother who is taking care of their home, doing the laundry, cooking, ensuring that the house is taken care of, that they must pause and interact with the child?
Well, we chose the communities through the poverty survey.
Okay.
And when we go into the homes, we usually talk with the parents, introduce the program to them and the importance about the program. And we get an agreement from them that they will be present during the stimulation and that their active participation is important, because the more they participate, the more the child will be interested in the activities. And they can continue doing these activities when the rover is not at the home, which will build on that child's development. And one thing that I wanted to stress too is through play, once the parent plays with the child, they're also building that attachment and that emotional, social development that they need, and that will help them when they become adults as well to build relationships with other people.
Now, and I'm already segregating it, which is what you're trying to not do. So let's talk about how you build common goals and objectives, right? I can see it very segregated from check-in with the pregnant mother to care after delivery to interventions if necessary, and education and parenting classes. And of course, we can never underestimate the need for quality daycare and preschool settings. Now, how do you synchronize all these activities and work towards the goal and objectives together?
I say one of the understandings is the extent to which everything is interconnected.
Yeah.
So, for example, we talk about early child brain development. A 4-year-old, something like 66% of their calorie intake goes on brain activity, which is the highest in the whole life, but it is wow. But where is the energy going to come from? So nutrition is important. The evidence is so strong that early childhood stunting, which is failure to develop the expected height, has a long-term impact. So the education sector is going to be heavily impacted if there are weaknesses in nutrition. The education sector is heavily impacted if there are weaknesses in home stimulation. And so then we had set up what I think is really quite exciting, a technical working group which the 3 of us are part of, where decision makers from the ministries meet regularly to make sure that we are aligning our policies and we are working on a joint strategy plan. The CEOs of the 3 ministries meet regularly to make sure that we are working together. Because we understand that, for example, education came to the realization we had tended to think that children didn't exist until they were 3. And then when they're 3, they magically appear, and then, but we are missing something very, very important here.
Now, that's an interesting question, and let me just dive in there. I know there has been a concerted effort to focus on early childhood development, and it's been increasing as the years go by. Essentially, we can change a lot of the issues we see today if young children are given the proper foundation. But at this point in time, early childhood education is still not mandatory as we see with the regular school system, education up until 14 years. is there going to be a move to do so? And what seems to be the challenge in being able to ensure that now?
I think there are three things. One is physical classroom space.
Okay.
And so there is a project with the IDB to build more classrooms. The second challenge is the remote rural areas where there are simply not enough children of age 3 to justify having a teacher in the classroom. So we need to look at the feasibility of having organized home-based education. And the third challenge we have is, we know, and again, it relates back to what Dr. was saying about the urban areas. There are lots of young children, 3 and 4, in the urban areas who live close to a preschool who do not go. And so this year we have a research project to try to find those families to say, why is it, and not in an aggressive way, but try to tease out the factors which prevent children 3 and 4 going to preschool even when there's one down the street. So although the target is to get every single 4-year-old into organized education, you can't mandate something if you can't deliver the service.
Yeah.
And so it will be, at some point that may well happen, and Mr. Farber has expressed that as an aspiration. But we need to get from 65% to 80% as a minimum, then 80 to 90, 90 to 95.
What are some of the barriers? I'd imagine costs being one, as we understand in the country, people struggle with getting kids into preschool because there is a cost associated with it. But what are some of the other barriers you find as to why parents perhaps don't sit and work with their children at home, or why they don't get them enrolled in some kind of organized learning activity?
Well, with the experience that we've had some parents who thought that children didn't learn from 0 to 3. So that's one of the things that we had to educate them on, sensitize them on. Another thing, when they reach the age of 3, some of the parents say, she's still a baby or he's still a baby. She's too young to go to a big school.
Yeah.
So that's another issue that comes up. Yes, the expense is one too. When they say preschool, so it's too expensive for me to send my child at this age. So those are some of the things that we see are issues with the families that we reach out to.
And then working patterns, childcare issues. One of the problems we know is preschool is only half day.
Yeah.
And preschool, let's say it starts at 9. So if you start work at 8, you have to arrange somebody to take the child to the preschool, to pick the child up, to look after the child till you get back from work.
Yeah.
A lot of parents commute. So that is why we need to research it, because we don't want to make policy based on a set of gut feelings.
Yeah.
But I do agree with Diana that many people do not understand the importance of the first 3 years, because I think if you go back 15 or 20 years, that's what everybody thought. The learning really kicked in when you went to primary school. And we know that is wrong. And it is only the last 10 years that the proof that is wrong has been so forceful. But the general population hasn't been presented with that evidence and presented with what we're saying now.
Yeah.
If you really want your child to do well and to thrive, the first 3 years are absolutely crucial.
And parents are trying to grasp onto that idea that children learn through play. They don't understand that, and that's what we're trying to show them. They learn through play, through the simple things that they're doing at home. Playing with the other children, they're learning about social and emotional development. Playing by themselves, doing imaginary play, singing songs to them, their language development is expanding. All of these things, they don't see it, so we have to actually show them how it's working. And then when they realize that, then they start to encourage it more. But they have to realize that it's actually happening, that yes, children learn through play.
It's like just rolling a ball to a child, playing with the child. It would look like something easy to do and without no importance, but it's really helping the child to develop the eye motor coordination. So each one of the activities that are in the toolkit to play with children have a reason, a neurological reason why these play activities will help the child to develop.
And it doesn't have to be the parent.
No.
I mean, now we know a lot. Like you say, the way science shifts in the last 5 years, maybe, an understanding that the interaction between the grandparent generation and the young child has as big an impact as that of the parent, especially where the parent is working.
Yeah.
So in fact, the time interaction may be a lot more with the grandparent age. One of the things the mixed survey showed was a big difference between women interacting with young children and men. But men have a crucial role in playing with their children. And that is fathers, and it is grandfathers, and it is uncles, and
Male
it is
figures in the
male
family.
figures. So you shouldn't be saying, well, I have to go to work and therefore this is terrible. It is make sure whoever is looking after your young child
Yes.
interacts. If you're having a babysitter come to the house, they shouldn't be sitting watching TV the whole day and your child is just sitting in the corner. Explain to the babysitter, you can really help this child learn and grow by getting on the floor, doing puzzles, working with them.
And I
with
know
them.
that is one of the struggles that parents have even at an early age. They hire a babysitter, but you really don't know the level of interaction that's taking place. And I see that as one of your activities that you're looking to train in care for child development. Is this for persons who will come in contact with the children formally, or can it be perhaps a session that you do, like your parenting session, where if I'm going to hire a babysitter, I'll say, okay, I want you to do this course first or this training first before you interact with my child. Where are we with that?
Oh, we're not that far as yet.
It would be a great
suggestion. What we're looking at when we said training for care for child development is to do training of trainers, so that we can train field officers in each ministry to bring across the care for child development, which is communication and play. So how do we stimulate and communicate with our children? So we have the health part and we also have the stimulation part coming together.
So we're not at the point of public training?
No, not as yet.
And care for child development, a review was done lately, and I think I won't say worldwide because it did not say worldwide, but in 19 countries they only had 23 sites that had integrated care for child development. And the impact of the care for child development is so much that even one encounter per month promoting early stimulation, you get great results with the child. So it's that powerful.
And the good thing about care for child development, it teaches you how to stimulate children who are sick as well. So
With disabilities.
Children with disabilities, children who are in the intensive care unit, they can all be stimulated. So it teaches the trainer how to teach the parent to do that with the child.
It's almost like shifting completely from what used to be to what needs to be now, and those types of changes don't come easy. A new parent, for example, relies on their parents to be able to tell them how to work or how to take care of the baby, and it might be things that could be disruptive to breastfeeding, because we know a lot of the older traditions still exist. It could be about how to care for a crying child. Don't get them used to hand, don't cuddle them too much. It could even be with toddlers and how you discipline. So the information passed on to parents has to be something that is strong enough to withstand the tradition that they'll rely on. And that's a barrier I'm sure is a bit difficult to overcome. How do you see yourself overcoming this obstacle?
It's almost the same as we're saying with children. You can't just tell. Some people you can just tell and they won't. And even showing is not as good as doing with. So that's why the roving caregivers program is so powerful, because it is doing things with the parents. But we have to use all the different techniques. But certainly, I wouldn't say it is a complete change from what happened in the past, as much as an extension of the role of the parent. So the traditional role was really you are a good parent if the child has food, the child has clothes, the child you take the child to the doctor if the child is sick, or you get the medication, and that almost defined what a good parent is. And then what we're saying is that is only part of what a good parent does, and the other part is the play and the stimulation and the interaction. And unless you're doing that, you are, how should I put this? You're not giving your child the best chances in life.
And we all find, there is no time there's more involvement with a child than those first couple of years.
Yes.
You monitor, watch everything, brag about everything. She smiled today, she turned over, she rolled over. And so I think fundamentally most parents want to give their child the very best. It's just adding the skill. Then I'd love to tap into your experience when the roving caregivers go out and you sit with parents and talk about the stimulation process. At what point do you get what we call the aha moment? Like, oh, this is why I should be doing this, or I didn't know this would provide this outcome.
It starts after the first 2 or 3 sessions, after they see the child is actually progressing and doing the things that they thought they weren't able to do at that age.
Yeah.
So then they get much more encouraged and much more into the activities, because they realize that there are the benefits to what we're doing.
So once they see the child is learning, they want to help them learn more.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the other activities that this coordination group will be taking on.
I think the main activity is that the child travel throughout the different age groups that they pass through, no? And the child is no longer invisible to the different partners.
Yeah.
So Ministry of Health will be looking at the needs for this family, for this child, where MHD can tap in. Same, referring if necessary to Ministry of Education. And we are expecting the same from the other partners. If they see a child that is malnourished, refer to the Ministry of Health so that we can help them. And same in education. Look at the vaccine cards. If they're malnourished, again, refer to the Ministry of Health or call the Ministry of Health to deal with the case and provide the support. And throughout the cross-cutting for all is the early stimulation.
And the good thing about it now is that we're much more aware of the services that each ministry provides for early childhood development, and it's much more formalized now, so that it's easier for us to communicate with each other.
Yeah.
Now, while I wouldn't want to overburden any one ministry, the Ministry of Health has a captive audience with their clinics and the mothers who go in, especially for vaccinations and for follow-ups after birth. Is that also an opportunity that you're looking to perhaps to start to plant the seed of child early stimulation in their children? Is that an opportunity where you can take advantage of?
From birth.
Yeah.
Of course, we try our best now to provide support for women during pregnancy or even before pregnancy.
Yeah.
Because one of the activities that we have there also is to provide family planning services to help women to adequately space the pregnancy so that they can dedicate the time that they want for this child without becoming pregnant with an unplanned pregnancy. And we also, so we provide the services at the clinic, but it starts really from birth.
Yeah.
And there are studies where in some cases, children may have only that opportunity to receive early stimulation. So that is what we are preparing for rollout. More or less, I guess, around June, July, we will start with the training every 3 months until we train all our cadre of nurses and doctors.
And then the other side of this at Ministry of Education is we are actively looking at our curriculums with the Ministry of Health to say what is it, for example, about healthy pregnancy or healthy child rearing that we really need to be teaching in schools.
Yeah.
Instead of, I think in the past, it was kind of a Ministry of Education figuring out what we thought the Ministry of Health would want.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now it is very much okay. The environment, for example, about lifestyle and contagious diseases is changing. So what is it the Ministry of Health would like to see in the curriculum? How can we facilitate those messages? And how can we make sure that the messages that teachers are giving to students are the correct messages and not based upon their opinions or what their grandmother told them or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of accessing quality early childhood education institutions, what does the ministry do in terms of, and you work at quality assurance, so that's, because there are kind of the family settings where people maybe have a daycare going, or smaller preschools in different areas. How does a parent know where they should be sending their child? Because they may, with the best intentions, say, I heard that my child needs good stimulation before primary school, but they may send their child somewhere where it isn't being delivered.
I would say that is one of the big challenges that we face, because as
is it unregulated? I mean,
no, it is not unregulated. But what has happened is there's been a rapid expansion in preschools over the last decade, and really, I would have to say the system has grown faster than our ability to regulate it as it should be regulated. So it is not a complete free for all.
yeah.
But nor is there the kind of oversight that you need to have in place to make sure that it is as good as it can be.
Yeah.
And that comes both from legislation. For example, a lot of the education legislation was written for primary schools,
Yeah.
and then just kind of applied to preschools,
Yeah.
where sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Some of it comes to the way the schools are licensed and then supervised and inspected thereafter. So we have that on our agenda over the next 2 or 3 years to really strengthen not only the preschool supervision, but also daycare.
Daycare, yeah.
And there we have a very small number of licensed daycares, which are actually licensed by the Ministry of Human Development. But the vast majority of daycare sittings are unlicensed, unregulated.
So let's give parents a checklist. Somebody is inspired by what we're hearing today, by what we're saying today. They have a 2-year-old at home preparing to turn 3, and they say, okay, now I understand my child. I need to do work with him or her at home, but I also have to prepare to get them ready for school. How do I go about choosing what would be best for my child, other than availability?
I would say go into the preschool or the daycare center, observe for a few days to see what's the interaction between the daycare provider and the children.
Yeah.
If they do any stimulation activities in the center, how do the children react to the daycare providers, to see if it's a safe environment also.
Enough space to play.
Yeah, enough space to play. The place is clean, these things that are necessary for the child, you know. Looking at the playground settings and all of that too.
Space to play and time to play. So if you're seeing a preschool which is very regimented,
Yeah.
then, and especially if the
Because some are very focused on
Right.
academics. It's the opposite,
right,
yeah.
and if the teacher looks to you like a primary school teacher looks, then you may have further questions. I wouldn't say that's necessarily definitely a bad, but you would expect to see a preschool teacher who is much more relaxed, who is more likely to be low down to the floor, on the floor, is much more likely to be sitting next to a child and working with that child.
That one was a good one before this one.
Yeah.
Right. As opposed, if all you're seeing is a preschool teacher standing at the front of a class and like talking at the children, which is what you might see at a high school.
Yeah. That isn't the preferred setting.
Not, and our teachers know that.
Yeah.
It's not as if.
Yes.
Exactly.
So it has to look like their adult friend who's playing games with them. That's what, and lots of space, that they have safe space
Safe
to play.
space. And toys and books, which look like they're being used
And at their reach.
at their reach, at their level.
Yeah. So these are all, I mean, you know, we don't always tell parents these types of information, and I think I go back to the issue that we do have many parents, and I want to say the majority of parents who want the best for their kids at this age. It's just informing them of what they can do.
Yes.
Now, I know you have some very specific outcomes that you're trying to reach as a coordinated group. What are those outcomes, and what's your timeline to be able to improve what we see today?
Well, the first one is that children are born and remain healthy. And the second is about the child's environment, and language in terms of the nurturing and responsive and safe and secure and culturally appropriate environment. And a key term there is responsive. So does the child respond to does the environment respond to the child's needs. In other
Yeah.
words, the people in the environment are responding to the child. And then the third one is making sure that every single child has the opportunities to develop the skills that are necessary for lifelong learning, whether that be in a preschool setting or whether that be in a home setting.
Yeah.
We know that it will be, well, I guess a lot of the planning right now is 2030. Can we see if we can get into the 90%, the 95% of children by 2030? Look, in most countries, or even developed countries, only have about 80% of their children going to preschool, and it's something they struggle with. So we're at 63% when we are getting there.
Yeah.
Can we move to 80% within 5 years? I think we possibly can.
Yeah.
In terms of health and
Yeah. And I want to focus on the social aspects too, about how I've said this many times when we talk about ECD. I always remember Dr. Gale just saying that one poignant message: mothers, hug your boys. Hug your baby boys and let them feel the love. And it still resonates with me because I think it's the little things that we neglect that really make a difference. Talking about a socially adapted child from a very young age, what are some of the things parents can be doing at home with both their little girls and their little boys?
Well, it comes back to having them play with dolls, boys and girls.
Say that again so people hear that. Don't whisper it. We want our little boys to play with dolls.
We want our little boys to play with dolls. That builds up their nurturing skills. Talking to them, communicating with them, having them express their emotions. So if you got hurt and you want to cry, you can go ahead and cry. Having boys and girls doing the same little chores around the house, no? Age-appropriate chores, of course. Having them express themselves, which is important, so that when that child wants to tell you something, you pay attention to them, not because you're 2 or 3, you say, oh, what you're saying is not important, my novella is much more important at this moment. No, you take time to listen to that child. It might be important to them at this age. And if you show that then when that child becomes older, when they become teenagers, when you really want to know what's going on in their lives, they'll come themselves and tell you about it because you started to pay attention to what they're saying from an early age. So it starts from then. No? And just being with them, playing with them, showing that you're interested in what they're doing, building that safe attachment will help them when they become older to have that emotional and social development that you want, that positive development that will help them out throughout their lifetime.
There's a phrase which is often used now, which is serve and return, when it comes to interaction. And it's like tennis. So somebody serves the ball and then somebody hits it back. And the idea here is you pay attention to the child. So the child serves and then you respond. Or you serve and the child responds. And so following the lead of the child and what the child is showing an interest in and responding to that and creating an environment where that child can explore what they're interested in is really crucial. If you set up an environment which is constraining, where you as the adult are all the time dictating what the child does, the child is not going to learn as effectively as if you set up an environment where, think of the child like a little scientist. They all the time, and this is what young children age 0 to 3 do. They create their little ideas and they test them out. They are perfect scientists with their hypotheses and their research, and that is what the child is doing when the child is trying to build a
So what
a tower of
happens
blocks.
when I take the spoon and bang it against the pot?
It is a scientific experiment. And instead
A
of
loud one.
a loud one, and one that you need to encourage and respond and provide the environment where that can flourish. And so this idea of you respond to where the child is leading you in a positive way, and then it will be a beneficial relationship.
And you need to remember, children are intrinsically motivated to learn. So they want to learn. We just have to give them the correct environment so that they can explore and learn. And of course, giving them that adult scaffolding, that support that they need to move on to the next level when they have mastered a certain skill. That is important for the child. And remember, parents are role models to their child. So how we talk to them, how we express our anger, when they go out, when they start preschool, that's how they will express their anger, how they will speak to other people. So we need to realize that. So it starts from home. We build that in them, and then when they start to express a certain behavior that you don't like, or that the teacher comes back and tells you, well, your child is doing this and this in school, then you start wondering about where did they see that? And it might have been right at
Look
home.
in the mirror.
It might not have been you, but
Yeah.
maybe the father or the babysitter is doing that.
sibling.
Yeah, or the sibling, and that's normal. You accept it at home, so that's what they'll do when they get out there too.
Well, I think,
In regards
Last point,
to in regards to play, one might think, oh, we have to buy toys and sophisticated toys, but the Care for Child Development will teach them how to use the utensils that they have at the household to play with the child.
Yeah.
And it's just to give an example, if we use a bowl with a child, we are showing the child the shape of the bowl, the consistency, the color. It's a lot of learning just by playing with a home-based utensil.
If you saw from Ms. Gamboa's things that she had there that day, well, that was the package for Care for Child Development. So it's things that you can find at home, the clothespins, the toilet paper roll, the spoon, the cup, that. It's at home, you have it there, it's just how you use it with the child.
okay. And I think the most important point that we can remind parents of is that the brain development, is it 5 years or 3 years?
0 to 3 are the critical periods.
66% of the development, is that what you said?
No, no,
90%?
no,
Yeah. 90% within the first 3 years. So that means we have a lot of work to do during those first 3 years. We thank you so much for coming in and letting us know what you guys have been doing from your end. And of course, I think it's something that we all want to see you be able to achieve, because it helps us to have a better society as these kids grow up as well. Thank you for being here. We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we are going to be talking about visa requirements. What's that? We're out of time. I'll do that for you later. But we're going to be talking about visa requirements with the U.S. Embassy in Belize, so stay tuned.